Hey, thanks for tuning in. I'm CalebDMTG, and today the D stands for delicious, because we're going to be talking about food. First, big shout out to Wizards for sponsoring this video series. Much love, Wizards. Heck yeah. Alright, food. Food is a set mechanic in the new Throne of Eldraine set. Abilities that create a food put a food token into play, which is an artifact that you can sacrifice for 2 mana, and thus gain 3 life. How flavorful. Food tokens are much less powerful than clue tokens, but that also let the set designers do more interesting things and scale the payoffs accordingly, aside from getting a permanent to interact with. Food seems a lot closer to energy, and that you can use this secondary resource to fuel something greater later on. Some of these cards might look pretty bad on paper, but still see a lot of play simply because they enable a larger strategy. Since we're going to be talking about food a lot over the course of this video, I think this is a rare opportunity to work food into the video itself, thus making my grocery bill a tax write-off. Yes, don't try this at home, kids. God, I love my job. Alright, I picked up some produce earlier. Let's see what we got here. Let's see what we got. Munch on a little bit in mid-video. I got a nice, I don't know if this is like a kind of apple or something, but let's try it out. Food, right? Food hype. Well, that's fresh. Let's look at some of the cards, shall we? Let's start with the cards that I consider draft filler. These aren't necessarily unplayable cards, but they aren't a draw to playing a color either. Instead, they're used to kind of fill up the holes in your curve, just to have something to do until you draw your better cards. Card number 1, Wolf's Quarry. So 6 mana for 3/1/1s. This card has to be bad, right? Well, Devil's Playground was pretty good, and it was 6 mana to make 4 1/1s. And those 1/1s traded up, of course, so that you'd have a 1/1 that could trade with a 2/2. If you blocked with all 4 of them, you could trade with an 8/8. So there was a lot of value there. So it was like kind of an innocuous card. And I'm wondering if this card might be something similar. Obviously, it's a common, so it's not a rare, so it's like less powerful. But I mean, if you have a clue payoff, right? You got 3 bodies, you get 3 clues. Maybe there's something there. Maybe this card's better than it looks. Right now, I've got it as filler, but who knows, right? Insatiable Appetite. Pump spells are always kind of fillery, though they can overperform in certain types of aggro decks. I'm guessing you won't have to sacrifice a food for this to win combat very often. Usually +3/+3 is good enough, though having the ability is nice, especially if it lets you sneak in lethal. Marleaf Rider is a small body with a few tricks. You can provoke a single creature, or if you have enough food lying around, you can force an opponent's entire team to block this 1/3/1, which is useful. It's got they're useful abilities, but the base stats make me think that it's just not a high pick at all, right? It's a common. You should be able to get one if you need one. You probably don't need one. Fell the Pheasant. Usually I'm not a huge fan of plummet effects in the main deck, unless you're very weak to flyers. That said, if you do have a food payoff, then this card gains a decent amount, so I could see leaning towards playing it as the 23rd card in the main deck for sure. Overall, this card is much better than plummet, since gaining 3 life alone is going to matter more often than the times you're not going to be able to kill like an X6 flyer, right? So plummet would be able to kill any flyer. This one can only kill a flyer with 5 toughness or less. Most flying creatures have 5 toughness or less. This doesn't miss very much. Bartered Cow. Love this card. I think it's very interesting because it does something for free. And sometimes when things do things for free, they're actually very, very good, even if they don't look very good. If you're discarding cards anyway, you're just like generating free food. And I'm almost kind of glad that Faithless Looting got banned in Modern, because otherwise I'd be trying to make Bartered Cow, Urza work, just nonsense. Fortifying Provisions. This card isn't interesting to me at all. +0/+1 isn't quite worth a card, and adding a food token doesn't tip the scale for me. Cauldron Familiar. Ooh, the kitty. Kitty. I imagine this sort of card is going to be overplayed. If you have a lot of food generators with a few payoffs, it could do work. And it is a nifty loop with Witch's Oven. So if you already have a Witch's Oven, this card becomes a lot more interesting. But in the end, a 1-mana 1/1 should miss the cut more often than not. Sometimes the Recursive Body is very, very strong, though. So I'm going to be giving this one a chance, trying it out, keeping an open mind, right? You should be. You should be using set overviews to, like, kind of just think about cards in a different way, right? You should be like, okay, what does this person think about this card? You shouldn't be thinking, all right, this is a hard ranking of the cards. This will not change. You should really just be taking my perspective, balancing it against like other reviews and overviews that you read and your own, and then just like play with the cards yourself, see what actually matches up with reality, and learn that way. That about does it for filler cards. So I'm gonna take another bite of this weird apple. We'll move on to quality filler. Oh. Yum! Alright, let's move on to quality filler. Quality filler are cards that are earlier picks. They're cards that might draw you towards a color. And if you see them very late, it could be a sign that the color strategy is open. Not necessarily bombs, not necessarily pack one, pick ones. They're not going to like destroy your limited game or whatever. They're not going to like win on their own, but they're quite good cards. It's like removal, that sort of thing. One card that I might be overvaluing a little bit, but I think it's quite good, is Tempting Witch. I think it's better than it looks. Either drain for 3 or gain 3 by itself, and then if you have a few food lying around, it starts to get silly. My issue with this card is that if there's an abundance of random life gain in the format, like if everybody is making food tokens, then a dedicated drain creature might just bounce off of the opponent's life gain. So, kind of similar to these Deathrite Shaman battles that used to happen, where like you'd have a Deathrite Shaman, the opponent would have a Deathrite Shaman, and you'd like fight over the same creature, the same spell to drain, or like you'd gain 2 life and they would drain you, and it would just like go back and forth, and neither person would like make a lot of headway. But I think this card is pretty good, and I hope it's sweet. Hope it's a fun build around. Hope it kills a lot of people. Giant's Skewer. So this is a repeatable food generator with useful stats, and that seems like a good combination. I'm not super high on a lot of the equipment in the set, but like if you have a food payoff, this card seems good, right? Just keep churning food. Fierce Witchstalker. 4 mana for a 4/4 trampler plus value. This is Pauper level Obstinate Baloth, and it should be an absolute house unlimited. Gingerbread Cabin. This is somewhere in between regular filler and quality filler. I don't think Gingerbread Cabin is a high pick, but you can also get away with playing a lot of them for close to free. I love it. Why am I still doing this? What is wrong with me? Let's move on. Alright, limited bombs and build-arounds. I think these cards are pack one, pick one, potentially, right? I think you want to take them like very early, and I think you want to build your deck around them, if you can. Number 1, Taste of Death. This card was featured in the Arena Brawl event, the Jund Sacrifice deck, and that was an absolute blast to play. But more importantly, every time I drew this card in particular, I seemed to win. It's nuts and limited, nuts and brawl. Probably too expensive for standard, but I can dream, can't I? This card's sweet. Savvy Hunter. This is a resource generator and payoff all in one with a reasonably costed body. This seems like a first pick to me. It is 2 colors, so you're locking yourselves into 2 colors, but if you don't mind that, you know, you can always drop it if one of those colors aren't open, right? Card's good. Clackbridge Troll. Life, extra cards, and an eventual 8/8 Trampler. Seems like a limited bomb to me. I would love for this card to be constructed playable, but I can't come up with a shell where it isn't too wonky. It takes too long to get rolling for an aggressive deck, and a more controlling deck wants a more consistent body. If you play cards like Hushbringer to avoid the comes into play ability, then you're opening yourself up to getting blown out by removal, and then you're playing cards that like aren't quite good enough on their own, so they're individually weak. And so if you draw like a lot of one card but not the other, then it's awkward. Anyway, again, I love this card. Would love to be wrong on this one, but I think it's just a limited bomb. Bog Naughty. 5 mana for a 3/3 flyer is already great and limited. Does not take very many activations of this card to dominate a game. This card is pack one, pick one, heck yes. Giant Opportunity. As one of the more explosive food enablers, and a backup payoff, I think this card is going to see a lot of play in limited, possibly constructed. This is one of those cards where you look at it and you're like, well, that can't be quite good enough for constructed, and then it's just like a 4 of in every food deck, just because, it's 3 food, why not? Also, turn 3, 7/7. That's not terrible. It's not terrible. You need another. The issue with like just using this card to make a 7/7 is that there's no value there, right? So I think that the 7/7 aspect of the card is like really really good and limited, and probably not the main reason you should be playing it in constructed. I think that should be like an incidental. You have like a billion food, you're flooding out, you draw this card, you're like, okay, well, 7/7's better than more food. Gluttonous Troll. The base stats do not excite me for constructed, but it is a sweet limited bomb. Thallid Omnivore was very, very hard to deal with in Dominaria Limited, and this is a rare version of that type of card. So it's scaled to a higher rarity and less power level. So, bomb. Take it, kill people, you know what to do. Trail of Crumbs. This is another resource generator plus payoff. If your deck has a permanent source of food, like if you have some permanents that generate food, you can chain them together, churn through the deck. Costing a mana each time is a little clunky, but if you're gaining life in the meanwhile, right? Like if you're just like paying two mana to sack the clue, then you're gaining 3 life, so you can probably take some hits in there, right? Card seems good to me. The faster the format is, the worse a card like this is, but I don't think this format's gonna be that fast. All right, folks, all this talk of food is making me hungry again. Enough weird apples. Not into that. Gonna eat some normal food, some normal human food here. Check this out. I'm gonna eat this plate of very regular spaghetti in a nice regular way. That's gonna be good. It's gonna be a good little food break. This might be a good place for you to pause the video, go get some spaghetti of your own and join me. That's up to you. But yeah, let's eat this normal human food, and like normal humans do. Alright, constructed cards are cards that are not necessarily bad and limited. In fact, they're probably likely very, very good and limited. You can consider that most of these to be limited bombs. But I think they're more interesting to talk about in constructed because they're rare or mythic and they're just not going to be opened and limited that often. And my pack one, pick one of the constructed portion of this VOD is Oko, Thief of Crowns. I was talking to Sam Black the other day, and I think he might have convinced me that this card's good enough for Modern. If you play this turn 2 on the play, say off of a Mana Dork or a Mox Opal, and make a food, the opponent doesn't really have good options to deal with it. If they play a large creature, you can make it small. If they play a small creature, you can just steal it. Importantly, note that the +1 is changing a permanent that's already in play. So if you just have artifacts lying around, which is pretty easy to do in some formats, you're basically creating 3/3 hasters, which means that Oko is very good at pressuring opposing planeswalkers, which is kind of similar to like Tezzeret, Agent of Bolas, when you down-tick Tezzeret to make a 5/5. So Oko upticks to make 3/3s. It's pretty good. Also costing 1 less mana than Tezzeret. And on top of all that, you have a constant source of life gain for those troublesome burn decks. Lantern definitely wants this. Urza probably wants this. And most random Artifact Matters decks should at least consider it. Oh, and of course, Oko is going to see all kinds of crazy play in Standard. Yeah, of course. The abilities work very, very well together. It's an incredibly well-designed card in that like each ability is not like overpowered on its own, but together, it's sweet. This is a sweet one. Next up, Gilded Goose. Pretty much everyone I talk to thinks that this card is nuts. Remember how much play that Servant of the Conduit saw? Now imagine that card as a 1-drop and scaled up in rarity. So this is easily a 4 of in any deck that cares about food at all. Feasting Troll King is a card that I think might see some constructed play. So if this card existed independent of the food aspect of it, it's got decent stats, 6 mana for a 7/6. As is, my question is more along the lines of how fast can we get this into play? How consistently can we get it into play and have the rest of the deck, not suck entirely? In Throne of Eldraine alone, we have Thrill of Possibility or Merchant of the Veil to bin it, and then we can play Giant Opportunity on turn 3 for a 7/6, if that's what we're into. Is that good? Kind of. I mean, we've spent a few cards and made a 7/6. It's not card advantage, right? Because we had to play Giant Opportunity to get the food to enable it. So if they answer our thing, now we need to find more food somehow. Anyway, while this sort of deck might be worth testing, or some style of self-mill brew, which could find the Troll King more consistently, I am worried that we'll be too all-in and the opponent can simply answer our thing and move on. What we do know is that free graveyard recursion can be pretty busted pretty fast. So, yeah, we'll see. Wicked Wolf. This card reminds me a lot of Bristling Hydra. This isn't quite that, since it doesn't generate the cost of activation upon entering play. So, if it came into play and generated a food, so you could, always be able to activate it at least once, then that would be, it would just be a better Bristling Hydra, I think. Obviously, Hexproof isn't the same thing as Indestructible. It's a 3/3 instead of a 4/3. But fighting something when it comes into play is real. In this format where everyone's playing Risen Reef, if you just, have a value 4-drop that's going to murder your opponent and it just gets to eat a mana dork or a 3-mana 1/1 or what have you when it comes into play, that seems good. It's a tremendous sink for extra food lying around. Remember to declare Wicked Wolf as an attacker first before you start loading it up with 1/1 counters. Witch's Oven is a hard card for me to place. I know I hated playing against it in the Brawl event. In Limited, it's the sort of card that weaker players are going to play too often and medium players are going to play too rarely. It turns dying creatures into value and helps enable your food payoffs. I think it has a good chance to show up in Constructed. I think it might be good enough. Even with the Feasting Troll King alone, if your opponent plays a removal spell on the king, you can sacrifice it, generate 2 food. Now you only need 1 more food to bring your 7/6 Trampler back. Yeah, I think that's going to work out. Obviously, I can't know. I haven't tested it. I haven't brewed. I haven't played the new format. But that's my guess. That's what this is. I'm just guessing. Anyway, it's also a combo with the 1/1 Kitty, though I'm not sure if that's actually good or not. We'll see. Probably good enough for Limited, at least. All right. Now, I want to close up here. We've talked about all the Food Matters cards. I want to close up here with the deck list. Give you guys a little taste, something to look at. This is what I brewed up for a Food Matters type deck in this early standard format. While I talk about it, I'm going to get a little bit more food in me, get my energy up. Got some of the good stuff. I'm going to have a little taste here. So the idea of this deck is pretty basic. Neither Golden Goose nor Aboreal Grazer are consistent ramp cards, but both allow for a turn 2 3-drop. Oh, that's good. In this case, either Oko or Teferi. And dropping either of those 3-mana Planeswalkers on turn 2 could be lights out for some matchups. And the rest of the deck is designed to take advantage of the extra mana as well. Oh. I had an idea for a Bant Walker's deck that used Saheeli, so you'd always have these random artifacts lying around for Oko to turn into 3/3s, but that didn't quite come together. Oh, that's good. Oh, that's the good stuff. Also, I wouldn't be surprised if food became its own archetype, similar to how Rug Energy did. 4 Goose, 4 Oko, 4 Wicked Wolf, pile of food enablers. Currently, I don't have a Shell Ruffed out, but that's one of the archetypes that I'm looking forward to trying in the early access event coming out later this week. Oh. Thanks for watching this video. Hopefully you enjoyed this deep dive into food with me. Hopefully I'll have the last video or 2 up in the next couple of days before the pre-release. That's the goal. I'll do my best. Much love, everybody. Thanks for watching. Thanks again to Wizards for sponsoring my video series. Big shout out to Wizards. All right. CalebD out. CalebD out!